Good evening. I'm Sharon Beckman-Brindley, and I will be guiding us through the evening tonight. So welcome to all of you. I'm going to do things a little backwards tonight. And I wanted to do a guided practice and wanted to introduce it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is talk for just a short while, and then introduce a guided meditation that I'll try to set up in the talking. So, and then we'll have some room. We'll have some room at the end, I hope, for some comments and questions. Sometimes sometimes the teachings can seem so simple. If you look up meditation, or you tell people that you meditate, and people say, "Oh, I should do that. That'd be good for me." Or you look up meditation online, and I actually did this when I was preparing the talk. I was like, what does this look like? You look up meditation online, and there are inevitably pictures of beautiful people sitting serenely. It's usually on a beach, and there's lots of gorgeous light, and they have cute little yoga clothes on. And they're way thinner and younger than I am. And it just there were lots of those pictures. Just looking up meditation. And it's sort of well, that's, and that's sort of people's ideas, with those people that say, gee, I should do that. I need some of that serenity that you have, that, beautiful simplicity and the light and the calm and the serenity at all costs. And we can begin to wonder, it's like, oh, it's just not really like that for me, quite. And other times it just seems so impossibly hard, There's talk about the teachings about renunciation and about emptiness and about ethics. And it just can seem like, and Shinzen Young used to talk about practice, and I think the Buddha actually said this, practice as though your hair is on fire, because it is, it's that important. So you have to really practice and practice hard. And so there's a sort of dance between, of impossibility, it's just A, it's too hard, and B, it's too hard. It's sort of either way, it's really quite a challenge. And I was thinking about that, and just thinking about, and just actually paying attention in my own practice about that exact challenge. And I was thinking about the story that many of you will know, the story about the night of the Buddha's awakening. And he said, these teachings are kind of subtle, and the practice is kind of subtle, and I don't think I'm going to teach. It's just, he says, it was something like it would be it would be hard for me to do that. It would actually disturb my tranquility to do that. And he ended up deciding to teach out of compassion. And I've read that line so many times, to teach out of compassion. And I sort of jumped over it, but I kind of paused on it this time, that all of the teachings, everything that we talk about, everything, come on in, Everything that we talk about, everything that we practice is for freedom from suffering and is out of compassion. Oh, well, that's nice. So all these teachings that we receive are out of compassion. Maybe think for just a minute in your own life. Who was the person, or who was a person who was the most warm-hearted and compassionate, kind of no matter what? You know, I had a friend, actually he was a family friend, wasn't even a relative. I had a family friend, and whenever we would go into his house, he would just light up and he would say, from wherever he was, he would say, "Sharon!" You know, and there really wasn't much of anything I could do to dampen that wonderfulness. You know, that just being there, just showing up, he was delighted. And I think that's kind of what really that sense of the Buddhist teaching out of compassion. You know, you can think about your own name. You know, it's like, let me offer these teachings to you out of just love and warm-heartedness and compassion. So think about, if you will, who was that person's name was Lowell. He was just this wonderful, dear man. Who was the person in your life who manifested for you that kind of unconditional presence, care, compassion, the most? You know, sometimes our little minds, we can watch our little minds go, well, you know, there was that one time, you know, that they did. But just somebody who really offered that kind of warm-heartedness for you. Might be a long time ago, might be in the grocery store this morning, I don't know. And just take a minute, if you will, and if you want to, talk to the person next to you and tell them about this. Tell them about, like I just told you about Lowell, so it wasn't a big deal. So take a minute and, if you want to, tell the person next to you about who this person was and what it was like to have their warm-heartedness and their compassion in your life. So take a moment, and if you haven't already, let yourself notice in the body just what that feels like. Whether you're speaking of it and remembering your own experience or hearing someone else's, just feeling that quality of goodness. And it was that quality of goodness of heart that led the Buddha to offer the teachings to us. And what he invites us to cultivate in our own practice as we practice. And sometimes we can get a little bit, a little bit off balance as we practice. We can, as we pay attention to the content, if you will, of our awareness. We can, it's sort of like paying attention to the contents of politics or something. When we pay attention to the contents, we can actually focus a bit on the things that seem to be wrong. We can come and we can sit here and, be sitting through the meditation and just kind of be, in some ways, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, having some kind of judgment about what's not correct, what's not right. But not just a discernment, like it's raining out or the sun is shining, but a sense of a kind of nudge, a kind of push. I was talking to someone not too long ago who really had a very lovely idea about how to support herself in her practice and was going to write these little notes to herself, and it was very sweet. Except I kind of noticed as we were talking, and I asked her about it, that that it was like the notes were sort of like, be kind, you dummy who aren't really usually kind. I don't know what's wrong with you and why you're like that. Like there was a subtext to it. And there was just this like little subtle subtext to it that was really saying, like what's coming up is really a problem. And furthermore, you are a bit of a problem. And there are things that are wrong with you that we really have to fix. And hopefully, and I think that's sometimes what people mean when they say, I should meditate. There are things about myself that I really should fix, and I think meditation will help, So that the content, we should kind of pay attention to these things that are wrong and fix them. And somehow that's really what our meditation is about. Whether we fix the past somehow, or we fix ourselves, or we fix the world, or we fix something. Like fix our relationships, fix my husband, whatever. And so we can become stuck, even in our meditation and even about our meditation, in repeating those same kinds of stories and that same kind of a bit of an agenda about it. And it is important to be discerning about what we attend to. So sometimes the instruction is, okay, when that comes up, you can sort of let it be there and not engage with it. I gave a talk one time about the monkeys in Bali, and it's just like, okay, the monkeys are there and you can kind of walk along. But again, we can sometimes be judging ourselves, really if this were better, there just wouldn't be monkeys. And there certainly wouldn't be aggressive monkeys that steal your bananas. It wouldn't be like that if the world was right. But I think, and probably even more so, it's important to be wise and discerning, not only about what we are paying attention to, but also how we are paying attention. And that's what I wanted to try to get at tonight, to explore a bit with how we bring attention to whatever it is that's arising. The challenge really is to bring that quality of warm-heartedness, compassion, kindness to everything. To everything. And so, again, we can now say, oh, well, I don't do that right, so therefore I'm not really doing it really quite right. But we could bring a quality of kindness to that. It's just like whatever we find, whatever we see, to bring this kind of quality of whatever you touched into when you were speaking of this person in your life, to bring that quality of kindness and care and compassion to all of the experience, to all of the arisings. And so I wanted to do a guided meditation, and I was actually inspired. John Welwood was one of my first and very most important teachers, and I've been listening to guided meditation that he did, and I just really liked it, and so I wanted to offer that. So I've fiddled with it a bit, so it was inspired by John's, and what I'll do is I'll ask Judy in the recording, I'll ask her to post a link to John's meditation as well, and you'll recognize some of what I'm saying, that it really was inspired by his meditation. John has died, but his website is still active, and it's lovely to hear his words. So I wanted to do that introduction because here I'm going to offer an invitation to bring that quality of warm-heartedness to our own experience. Okay? And then we'll have some time later on to, if you want to make observations or ask questions about that. Okay. So let's just move into the meditation part. Bringing a quality of warm-hearted presence. So begin by simply feeling yourself being. Whatever that means to you. Don't make it fancy or complicated. Just tuning into the fact that you are being. Being here, being. Awareness of being, the ground of simple presence. And feeling that in your body. What's it like in your body to simply be? We're not touching into our body. Our practice is kind of mental. So we're not trying to be anything in particular, just being. Feeling yourself simply here, having the experience of being. Being embodied in this human form. Being this person, this self. Relaxing. You don't have to do anything. There's just being. Feeling in your body what it's like to just be you, here, now, present. Can that be known with that simple, kind, compassionate awareness? Which is the whole basis of self-love. Bringing a loving care to the simple experience of being. Being here, being you, to be in this body, to be in this life. It's not like there's a solid sense, a solid self you have to love. It's more fluid than that, like water. Knowing with kindness and bringing loving care to simply the beingness of it all. resting in that quality of awareness, which is always here. It's always available, no matter what the content is. To further enhance this experience of loving being this particular form, being alive, I'll offer a bit of visualization of loving awareness, just receiving loving awareness from the ground up, from the earth. Receiving the energies of loving awareness from the sky, open and spacious. No matter what arises, clouds, kites, birds, airplanes, no matter what arises and passes through the sky, open, receptive, spacious. Feel the air here, present, supporting us, giving us life. Nothing that we think or do can make the air reject us. The air is free. It's not personal. It's just here, supporting this being. Similarly, there's the earth supporting us. This loving, this generous earth that is so abundant and tolerant and patient, giving us just what the body needs. Feel the earth now supporting you. Feel the chair supporting you, the cushion that sits on the earth. Neither the chair or the cushion or the earth has any opinion about how you are supposed to be. The support is there no matter what. The body can rest. The body is held by the earth, this great mother. This mother, this earth that never rejects us for any reason. This is our basic experience of unconditional love. Nothing we do can make the earth reject us. The earth offers support and light and food and air. We can open to allow the body to receive the earth and its energies here, alive, beginning at the very base, receiving the loving energy of the earth into the soles of our feet. Let the soles of the feet receive aliveness from the earth, receiving and filling up with the loving offering of awareness from the earth. If there's a direct physical experience that you notice, fine, allow that. And if none, fine. Simply allow the intention to receive the earth's support, to receive the earth's energies and goodness and blessings. Just the intention is fine. These earth energies that bring us to life. Actually, I understand that they come from the stars, these energies that bring us to life and that keep us alive. We are literally stardust. Let that loving awareness, that loving energy come up now through the feet, through both of them, into the ankles. If it helps, imagine it something like liquid light coming up and filling the body from below. You can visualize that if it helps. Into the ankles. The lower legs, the calves and shins. Feel your body being alive, being known, filling up with loving awareness. The knees, thighs, pelvis and abdomen, the belly. The stomach area, the rib cage, the chest, the heart, the lungs. Filling up with the liquid light of loving awareness. This compassionate, loving awareness that gives no matter what. Warm and fluid. Filling up the back and the spinal column, a column of light. Flowing into the shoulder blades, the shoulders. down into the arms, the wrists, the hands and fingers. The whole body waking up to receive this liquid, loving awareness, liquid, loving energies. Back up through the arms to the neck and throat, the head, the skull, the face, the brain. Awareness manifesting as the energies of the earth, and more subtle, more deep even. This loving awareness that offers itself no matter what. Allowing yourself to feel this whole body filled with the liquid light of loving and compassionate and warm-hearted awareness. Just simple awareness. Unconditional love, not loving anything in particular, not loving because you are good or you've done something good, but just the love of being. This human form on this beautiful earth, in this beautiful universe, this being a manifestation of being in this universe. Just like this. Exactly like this. This being. All the power and magic and richness of this universe manifest in this very body. How amazing that it even works at all. This precious human body. Feel the whole body filled with that appreciation, that loving awareness. See if you can just rest in that field of awareness of the body, letting go into it, receiving, merging with it, being alive and one with this body of awareness. Our awareness of the body turns into the body of awareness, the body of the field of awareness. Awareness doesn't have any definite boundaries. It's not located in any container. You can expand to know and feel loving awareness throughout the whole space around you. The ground of the field of awareness is our essential nature. It's who we are. This loving awareness is the source of our well-being and healing and awakening. Being a real human being. It's who we are essentially, at the very basic level. And it's from this space of embodied, loving presence, loving awareness, that if you want to, you can turn toward a part, an aspect of this being that seems to need some support or some healing. Perhaps an aspect that gets judged or rejected. Criticized. A part of ourselves that needs, that has been somehow cut off from this field of loving awareness. Perhaps you can feel right now just how sane and wholesome the loving awareness is in the place where we're whole and complete, sane and healthy, intrinsically, essentially. This is our true nature. Nothing can change or mar this basic goodness. It's simply here. It's a given. It's the ground of our being just by being. But there can be some aspect that seems to be cut off, separate. Sometimes that arises in our meditation practice. It can be some dimension of our body that feels wrong somehow. That ends up kind of being separated somehow from this basic goodness, this basic field of loving awareness. It could be some aspect of our emotional life that has gotten cut off. Some place that has not been fully known or digested. And so ends up being a bit of an orphan in this field of awareness. So from this larger field, we can notice, it's sort of like noticing the monkeys, if you will. John, in his meditation, he quoted the poet Rilke, who said, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses that are waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything terrible is, below the surface, in a deeper essence, something helpless that simply wants our love." So we could practice bringing something that we consider to be terrible about ourselves Again, it could be some aspect of our physical being or some aspect of our um, not so healthy daily lives, or some emotion like anger or shame or blame or self-hatred or fear or doubt about the goodness of our own being. Maybe even, there might be doubt about, whether or not you're doing this right. Just some aspect that gets cut off as though it's an orphan, as though it's somehow separate from this flow of loving awareness. So anything like that you consider to be terrible, and remember Rilke says perhaps everything terrible is in its deeper essence something helpless that simply wants our love. So let's practice bringing this cut off orphan part of ourselves into the light of loving awareness that we've tuned into. Let's invite that aspect that we regard as terrible into this spacious and loving field of awareness. With our insight mind, let's look into this part and see if you can recognize it as something wounded, cut off from the extreme, or from the stream of compassion and presence and care. And from the deep heart center, which is always unconditionally open like a sky that is always open, no matter how many clouds there are. From that deep heart center of loving awareness, see if you can bring forth the warmth of unconditional love, which is your nature, which is the unconditional awareness that we've just experienced throughout our whole body, and let the light of that unconditional love, a complete openness that radiates warmth, tenderness, compassion, that comes from the sense that all is well and open and love, that all is love. And let the light of that deep heart radiate warmth toward that part of yourself that seems so terrible, but that is just helpless and orphaned and wounded and cut off. And bathe that part of yourself with the compassion that you touched into earlier. With the loving awareness that you touched into earlier. Let that light enter into that part of you. See if you can notice that part letting the love in, receiving it or drinking it in. That part that is actually so hungry for unconditional awareness. See what it's like to let that part of you receive that love and be touched and bathed in it. Just see what it's like. No expectation. No rule about what it's supposed to be like. Maybe it can take it in and maybe not. It's okay. There's just that loving awareness. Sometimes we can even say from the point of view of the ego, I see you, with that quality of awareness. This can be a challenge when we're so used to orphaning parts of ourselves. So if you drift off, just come back. You drift off into some mental state or judgment. Keep letting yourself receive that love in this place. See if that part can let in that love, even if only a little bit. That's a start, even if it's only running along the surface. That's a start. Now allow yourself to come back to the field of loving awareness that fills your whole body. It's not something you have to manufacture. It's more like tuning into, like tuning a radio or tuning a musical instrument, tuning into what is always already here. Notice how quickly earlier you were able to tune into recognizing compassion and care. The body is a field of awareness. We're made up of mostly space. The body is a field of awareness. Awareness is a form of love. Love is a form of awareness. So we come back again and again to the field of loving awareness that is the essence of this precious human being bodiness. Tuning back into that field over and over and over again. I'm going to suggest something a little bit different for the break, and some of you may choose to do this, and some of you not, and that's fine. But as I've practiced with this myself, it's been really interesting to notice, to just kind of move through the field, if you will, of loving awareness. To, that there's the picking up a glass in this field of loving awareness, or there's the, walking to the door, there's the, writing the check for your dana, or there's the going to the washroom, but that you might just kind of hang out in a quieter space, just letting yourself kind of notice what, even my hand, that this is just arising. There are all these arisings, if you will, in this field of awareness. And they can just be known. We can practice, just all of it can simply be known. So if you want to, maybe let yourself be a little quieter than usual during the break and just explore how it is to be aware of whatever it is that's arising for you in that field of loving awareness. And then we'll say about 10 minutes, so about 5 after 8, we'll come back, and if there are observations or questions or comments, fine, and if not, there won't be. So I'll ring the bell in about 10 minutes or so. I find it a really interesting practice when I remember during the day to just kind of just be aware of, oh, this is arising. My voice is arising in the field of loving awareness. My arm is arising in the field of loving awareness. My sitting, so just to kind of just keep kind of practicing with this, kind of just tuning into the spaciousness and the goodness that's around us and in us and is the fundamental ground of our being, this basic goodness. So anyway, it's a nice practice to play with. Well, why don't we end there? I would invite you to take a piece of it and practice with it, whether it's driving home or, but to really let it be, because that is the heart of our practice. How we pay attention really matters. So enjoy, be nourished.